Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a pretty complex piece of international business theory and translating it into a highly practical, distinction-level toolkit for your next MBA exam. Because honestly, let's face it, nobody wants to memorize dry textbooks if they don't absolutely have to, right? So we're looking at this brilliant strategy known as the Springboard perspective. If you've ever found yourself wondering exactly how emerging market startups just leapfrog their way onto the global stage, well, this is exactly how they do it.
Here is our quick syllabus for today. First, we'll hit the Springboard paradox. Then, Springboard versus traditional theories. Third is the core, our 5-step exam model. Fourth, dodging those common exam pitfalls. And finally, the distinction conclusion. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The Springboard Paradox. Overcoming the flat ground.
So to kick things off, let's look at a pretty fascinating reality. Why is it that 4 out of every 5 major Nigerian tech startups, we're talking massive game-changing companies like Flutterwave, Paystack, and MoneyPoint, why are they actually incorporated in the United States? They didn't just abandon their home market. Instead, they use this foreign incorporation not as an exit strategy, but as a highly calculated weapon. They are literally bypassing the institutional constraints of their home base to unlock doors that a local address simply cannot open.
And just to put that into perspective, the stakes here, over $337 million. That's the sheer amount of venture capital Flutterwave secured, and it was largely thanks to their San Francisco registration and their participation in Y Combinator. A Lagos address alone just could not have easily unlocked that level of funding, right? Because local VCs often just don't have those massive checkbooks, and international investors, well, they can be a bit hesitant about local regulatory structures. So San Francisco gave them the credibility to secure the capital they desperately needed to go back and dominate at home.
Which brings us to the formal definition. Developed by Yadong Wo and Rosalie Tung and published back in 2007, the Springboard perspective basically explains that for emerging market multinationals, the foreign market isn't the final destination. It's a launchpad. It's like a springboard. You push down hard in the foreign market to catapult yourself higher, both globally and domestically. You use it to acquire strategic resources like tech, capital, and credibility, and to reduce the constraints back home. Basically, you are overcoming that latecomer disadvantage through some seriously aggressive risk-taking behavior.
Moving right along to Section 2, Springboard versus traditional theories, flipping the script.
The absolutely crucial point here is the massive flip in logic. Traditional international business theories, which were mostly built for Western, developed economies, they assume a company goes abroad because it already has strong advantages, superior tech, a powerful brand. They go abroad to sell and exploit that existing strength. But Liu and Tung asked a completely different question. What if you don't have those advantages yet? Well, the Springboard theory answers that. Emerging market firms go abroad specifically to acquire the capabilities they lack. They aren't going abroad to sell, they're going abroad to buy the weapons they need to win.
When we map this out against traditional models, the contrast is just stark. The classic Uppsala model, it suggests companies take slow, incremental steps into culturally similar countries. The OLI framework assumes a firm already has ownership advantages to exploit. But the Springboard strategy is fast, it's aggressive, and it's purely asset-seeking. So when a Nigerian founder hops on a plane straight to Silicon Valley before even expanding next door to Accra, Uppsala and OLI can't really explain it. But Springboard absolutely does. It's an asset-seeking leap, not a market-seeking crawl.
Okay, Section 3, the 5-step exam model. This is your distinction blueprint.
If you find yourself staring down an MBA exam question asking why an emerging market tech company lists in an advanced economy, this exact 5-step structure is literally what examiners are hunting for. We're going to walk through how to define, identify constraints, apply behaviors, critically evaluate, and conclude. Let's break these down one by one so you can crush it.
All right, step 1, define. In your exam, you want to always open with a clean, complete definition to establish your foundational understanding right out of the gate. State clearly that the Springboard perspective from Liu and Tung describes how emerging market firms use international expansion primarily to acquire critical resources, technology, capital, credibility. Make it crystal clear to the examiner that this is about resource acquisition, not just your traditional market penetration.
Step 2, identify constraints. Now, this is where you map out the specific flat ground the firm is dealing with at home. For instance, if you're analyzing that Nigerian tech startup, point out the underdeveloped venture capital markets. The ones that just can't write $50 million checks. Mention the unpredictable central bank regulations, or how local registration might hit trust barriers with international investors. These are the very real specific institutional constraints that essentially push a company to jump.
Then we hit step 3, which is applying the behaviors. You need to map the company's real-world actions directly to Lo and Tung's 4 distinct behaviors. Did they expand rapidly from day one? Boom, that's accelerated internationalization. Did they go straight to San Francisco instead of neighboring countries? That beautifully demonstrates path departure. Raising massive capital early on, that's a large initial commitment, and doing all of this to essentially buy capabilities, that is asset-seeking behavior in action.
Section 4. Dodging common exam pitfalls. Let's talk about the trapdoors.
Now, to secure a true distinction-level answer, you have to critically evaluate the strategy. You must highlight the trapdoors. Reputational sovereignty risk, for example, happens when companies face a domestic backlash for not being local enough after they incorporate abroad. There are institutional distance costs from trying to juggle wildly different legal frameworks. And crucially, there's the dependency risk, or falling into the springboard trap, where you expand so aggressively to seek assets that you accidentally lose your original identity or independence. A great example? Paystack used the springboard to attract Stripe's investment, which ultimately led to Stripe acquiring Paystack completely. You have to evaluate whether that loss of independence is a failure or a mission-aligned success.
And just to see the literal return on investment of overcoming these constraints, listen to this amazing real-world anecdote. A Nigerian tech founder noted how a London VC flat-out refused to sign a term sheet with a Lagos-registered entity, but once they incorporated in Delaware, that VC signed the very same week. As the founder said, the business didn't change at all, only the legal address. But that address was worth $2.5 million. It just goes to show, this isn't just academic theory, it's a multi-million-dollar survival tactic.
Finally, Section 5, the distinction conclusion. Landing the jump.
Step 5 is your conclusion, and your conclusion must synthesize the entire strategy. You really want to reiterate that the springboard is fundamentally an asset acquisition strategy. But even more importantly, close by stating that success requires actively managing those institutional risks we just talked about. Because a springboard only truly works if that acquired foreign credibility, capital, and technology are successfully converted back into a massive competitive advantage in the home market.
So as you prepare to apply this 5-step framework in your exams, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought about the ultimate price of using a foreign launchpad. Think about this. If a springboard strategy results in a total foreign acquisition, just like we saw with Paystack and Stripe, did the emerging market firm conquer the global stage by accelerating their mission, or did the global stage conquer them? It's a nuanced question for sure, and it's exactly the kind of critical thinking that earns you those top marks. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, good luck leveraging the springboard perspective.